I didn't know that the last time I heard my grandmother's voice would be through a hospital voicemail. Her message was weak, faint, but unmistakably hers. Lily, my little warrior, I hope you're coming today. I replayed it at least 30 times. That morning, the sky was gray and heavy, like it knew something I didn't. I stood in my bedroom staring at the small overnight bag I had packed: toothbrush, hoodie, sketchbook, the bracelet Grandma gave me when I turned 10. I was ready to stay with her until the end. She was dying, and I was not going to let her die alone, at least. That's what I thought, when I walked downstairs. Both of my parents were sitting at the kitchen table, waiting. My father's coffee was untouched. My mother's jaw was tight. "You're not going," my father said before I even spoke. I blinked. "What?" "The hospital called," my mother added. "She's not taking visitors anymore." "That's not true." She left me a voicemail. My father's eyes hardened. We said no. Something in his tone made my stomach twist. "This isn't about you, Lily," he continued. "It's about respecting the situation." Respecting? My voice cracked. "She's dying." My mother stood up abruptly. "And we are her children. We know what's best." I felt something shatter inside my chest. Grandma had been the one who came to my school plays, who hung my terrible middle school paintings on her fridge like they were museum pieces, who told me I wasn't too sensitive. I was observant. She saw me. My parents tolerated me. "I'm going," I said, reaching for my car keys. They weren't there. My father calmly pulled them from his pocket. "You'll thank us later." I didn't. I screamed. I cried. I begged. But they locked themselves in their bedroom until the Uber I tried to order was canceled because my father had frozen my bank card. That night, I listened to the rain hit my window and felt helpless in a way I had never felt before. 2 days later, she was gone. The funeral felt rehearsed. My mother cried delicately, the kind of crying that looks good in photographs. My father shook hands with people like he was hosting a business networking event. I stood beside the casket and touched the polished wood. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I tried. But deep down, something didn't make sense. Grandma wouldn't have told them to keep me away. She wouldn't have shut me out. Unless she didn't know the will. 3 days later, we sat in a leather-scented office across from Mr. Davenport, her attorney. My parents looked tense, but not grieving, expectant, as per Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore's last will and testament. My father straightened. "Her primary residence and financial assets shall be divided equally between her two children." My parents exchanged a glance. There it was. Relief. Satisfaction. And then there is an additional provision. Silence. Mrs. Whitmore established a private investment trust in the name of her granddaughter, Lily Harper. My breath stopped. The fund was created 5 years ago and contains an initial deposit of $150,000. Additionally, her personal stock portfolio dividends have been redirected into this account. My mother's lips parted. "That's impossible." "It is not," Mr. Davenport replied calmly. Mrs. Whitmore was very clear. My father's voice turned sharp. "Why were we not informed?" "Because she instructed confidentiality." The air felt electric. Then the lawyer handed me an envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. "My sweet Lily, if you are reading this, it means I was right. They kept you away. I know my children. I love them, but they have always feared losing control. This fund is your freedom. You told me about New York, about art school, about how you feel trapped. You will go. You will leave. And you will never ask for permission to become who you are meant to be. I made sure of it. Be brave. My little warrior. Grandma. I felt something ignite inside me. not anger. Clarity. The truth reveals itself at night. I overheard my parents arguing. She manipulated her. My mother hissed. She humiliated us. My father snapped. You knew about the fund? My mother demanded. No. Silence. And then, if Lily leaves, we lose leverage. Leverage. That word burned. It was never about protecting me. It was about control. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen calmly. I'll be moving out when I turn 18. My father laughed. With what money? I held up the trust paperwork. His face drained of color. Turning 18 in my 18th birthday. The trust officially transferred into my control. $183,742.16. I stared at the numbers for a long time. It wasn't just money. It was validation. Proof that someone believed in me. Enough to prepare my escape. I applied to 3 art schools in New York. I got accepted to one. The tuition deposit felt surreal as I wired the funds. The day I left, my parents stood in the driveway. You're making a mistake. My mother said. No, I replied quietly. You did, and I drove away. New York was loud, chaotic, alive. For the first time, I could breathe. I rented a tiny studio apartment with peeling paint and a radiator that screamed at night. It was perfect. I painted everything. Grief, anger, freedom. My first series was titled Control. It featured faceless figures holding invisible strings. A small, independent gallery agreed to display it. Opening night, I almost didn't go. But then I heard Grandma's voice in my head. Be brave. By the end of the night, 3 paintings had sold. A blogger wrote about me. Emerging artist turns inheritance into independence. The article spread. Then something unexpected happened. My father called. I saw the article. He said. There was no pride in his voice. Only calculation. You've done well. I waited. You should consider letting us manage your finances. I laughed out loud. Double quotes. No. Double quotes. Silence. Then. You think you're better than us now? No. I said softly. I just don't need you. And that was the real offense. The bigger twist. 6 months later, Mr. Davenport contacted me. There's something you should know, he said carefully. Your grandmother amended her will 2 weeks before she passed. My pulse quickened. She added a clause stating that if any party attempted to contest or manipulate the trust, their inheritance would be reduced. I felt cold. Reduced how? By half. I understood instantly. She knew. She anticipated them, and she protected me even after death. When my parents learned this, they stopped contacting me entirely. Not out of dignity. Out of fear. 2 years later, my second gallery show sold out in 48 hours. A larger gallery approached me for representation. An art magazine featured my story, not as scandal, but as resilience. Lily Harper, the artist who turned grief into freedom. I framed that article not because of the praise, but because it was proof. Grandma was right. Love doesn't control. It prepares. It protects. It empowers. The last voicemail she left me still sits, saved in my phone. Sometimes I listen to it before big events. Lily, my little warrior. And every time, I whisper back, I made it. 3 years after I left home, I stopped flinching when my phone rang. Almost. The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was in my studio in Brooklyn. Paint on my hands. Music low. Life steady. The screen flashed a name I hadn't seen in over a year. Dad. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. On the 4th call, I answered. What? His breathing was uneven. She's asking for you. My heart froze. Who? Your mother. I hadn't spoken to her since the day I drove away. What happened? There was a pause. She's sick. The irony felt almost cruel. Sick how? Just come home. The house that never felt like mine. Walking back into that house felt like stepping into a preserved memory. Nothing had changed, except everything had. The walls still carried family photos, smiling versions of us that never felt real. My mother was thinner. Weaker. But her eyes were the same, calculating, guarded. I didn't think you'd come, she said. I almost didn't. Silence stretched between us. Then she said something I never expected. There are things you don't know. A chill ran through me. About what? About your grandmother. About us. About you. My pulse quickened. I didn't sit down. I'm listening. The lie that built my childhood. She wasn't just your grandmother. My mother whispered. She raised you. I blinked. What? My father stepped forward. Tense. You were 2 years old when what? My mother swallowed hard. When we lost custody. The room tilted. You lost what? My father's voice was tight. There was an investigation. Investigation into what? No one answered. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. Say it. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Real ones this time. There were allegations of neglect. The word hit harder than any. Scream. Neglect. You're lying. We weren't ready to be parents. My father snapped defensively. We were overwhelmed, financially unstable. So Grandma took temporary guardianship. My mother finished. Temporary. I laughed, but it came out broken. Temporary. I lived with her for years. Silence confirmed it. She protected you. My mother whispered. From us, the world rearranged itself in that moment. Every birthday, I remembered at Grandma's house. Every time she said, "You are safer than you think." She wasn't being poetic. She was being literal. The real reason they kept me away, you didn't let me see her. I said slowly, because she was going to tell you. My father's jaw tightened. She had been talking to lawyers. Again, cold realization spread through me. She was going to change the will. Yes, my mother admitted. To what? She was going to tell you everything. Officially. Legally. The pieces slammed together. They didn't keep me away to protect me. They kept me away to protect themselves. If she disclosed the custody records publicly, my father said, it would have destroyed our reputation. Double quotes reputation. Not family. Not truth. Reputation. I felt something inside me finally snap. Not loudly, but permanently. You were never afraid of losing me, I said quietly. You were afraid of being exposed. The envelope, they never found me. Mother looked at me strangely. There's more. My stomach dropped. She left something else. I went still. What? She mailed it. To who? My mother's voice trembled. To you? I stared at her. That's impossible. I would have received it. She didn't mail it to New York. A long pause. She mailed it to your studio. My chest tightened. I had changed studio spaces twice in the last year. What was it? A sealed affidavit, my father said, documenting the custody case. Signed statements, hospital reports. My breathing grew shallow. She intended for you to decide what to do with it. The power of that realization was overwhelming. Grandma didn't just give me money. She gave me truth. And choice. The final confession. Why tell me now? I asked. My mother looked fragile for the first time in my life. Because the records resurfaced. Ice ran through my veins. How? There's a civil inquiry, reopening cases from that year. I understood. Instantly. If the story came out publicly, and my name was attached, it would explode. The artist who escaped Controlling family. The inheritance. The secret custody. Lost. It would become a headline. You need me to stay silent, I said. They didn't deny it. You want me to protect you. My father stepped forward. We're still your parents. I stared at him. For the first time in my life, I truly saw him. Flawed. Afraid. Small. Double quotes. No, I said calmly. You're the people who were supposed to protect me. Silence swallowed the room. The truth in my hands. When I returned to New York, I checked with the studio manager. There it was, a small safety deposit. Envelope. Unclaimed. Dated to weeks before her death. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside, copies of custody transfer, documents. Medical reports detailing emotional neglect. A signed letter from my grandmother. If you are reading this, it means they never told you. You were not taken from love. You were taken into safety. I do not write this to punish them. I write this so you never question your worth. None of what happened was because you were difficult. Or sensitive. Or too much. You were a child, and you deserved protection. Always. I broke. Not in anger. In relief. It was never my fault. The decision he could expose them. Sell the story. Turn it into a documentary. Fuel my career with scandal. Or I could do something else. I painted a new series. Title, Guardians. It depicted shadowed figures standing between a child and a storm. The exhibit launch was my largest. Yet. Press showed up. One journalist asked carefully, your work often explores protection and betrayal. Is it autobiographical? I paused. Then smiled slightly. It's about survival. And that was enough. The twist. They didn't expect a week after the exhibit. My phone buzzed. A legal notification. My parents had withdrawn their attempt to quietly petition partial access to my trust earnings. They had hoped to argue parental restitution, but the resurfaced custody records made that impossible. Grandma knew. She anticipated them. Even years later, she was still protecting me. The final line. He visited her grave. That winter. Snow covered the ground softly. I know now. I whispered. The wind moved gently through the trees. And for the first time in my life, the story felt complete. They thought the inheritance was money. They thought the secret was shame. But the real legacy she left me was something far more powerful. The truth. And the freedom to choose what to do with it. Asterisk. I never planned to expose them. For months after discovering the custody records, I stayed quiet. I focused on my art, on my shows, on building a life that wasn't defined by what happened when I was 2 years old. Silence felt safer, cleaner, but silence has a cost. And eventually, it collects. The shift began with a podcast interview. I had been invited to talk about my latest exhibit, Guardians, and the emotional themes behind it. The host asked gently if the work was personal. I hesitated, then answered honestly. I was raised by my grandmother for part of my childhood. I said, my parents lost custody for a few years. That was it. No names, no accusations, just truth. The clip spread online within hours. People shared it, commented, asked questions. Internet detectives began digging into public records. Old county filings resurfaced. Archived court summaries appeared in threads. Within 2 days, journalists were connecting the dots between my parents' names and the case. The first headline dropped quietly. The second was louder. By the third, it was viral. My parents called me in a rage. You've destroyed our reputation. My father shouted. I didn't destroy anything. I replied. I told the truth. But truth feels like attack when someone has built their life on concealment. 3 weeks later, they sued me for defamation. They claimed I exaggerated emotional harm to damage their business. It would have terrified me years ago. Not now, because I had evidence. The custody transfer signed by a judge, the investigation reports, the medical evaluations, and my grandmother's sworn affidavit explaining why she stepped in. The hearing was brief, procedural, cold. When the judge reviewed the documents, the tone shifted immediately. There was no ambiguity. The records confirmed substantiated concerns at the time of the custody loss. The case was dismissed publicly. That dismissal changed everything. The story was no longer speculation or internet gossip. It was verified legal history. Media coverage expanded. Articles reframed my work through the lens of resilience rather than scandal. My audience grew. So did invitations, gallery offers, and speaking requests. But what surprised me most was how light I felt. I hadn't exposed them out of revenge. I hadn't spoken to punish. I spoke because I was tired of carrying something that was never mine to carry. Their shame was not my inheritance. My mother requested to meet one last time. We sat across from each other in a quiet cafe. She looked smaller than I remembered. We were young, she said softly. We were scared. I was too. I answered. There was nothing else to add. Months later, I launched a foundation in my grandmother's name to support children placed under temporary guardianship due to neglect. At the opening event, I played her old voicemail before speaking. Lily, my little warrior. I didn't cry. I stood steady. They tried to silence me with fear, then with anger, then with a lawsuit. Each attempt only amplified the truth. The internet didn't create the scandal. It uncovered the history. And the real inheritance was never the trust fund. It was the freedom to speak without asking permission. It was the proof that none of it had been my fault. They feared exposure more than they feared losing me. In the end, exposure is exactly what set me free.